I was academically a really bright student. So I got this thing of, oh, you're so smart. Do you really want to do art?
Yeah.
So there was this whole perception of, people who don't like studying or we're not going to make it big can do this. But I think the biggest myth there is art needs more effort than anything else. I also feel like the whole narrative is changing. People want to pick a career that they are happy to be doing rather than get stuck into like a job where you're sogging your ass out doing something you don't enjoy. I feel like people perceive art and skill as the same thing. But I believe as an artist, it doesn't matter how well you can paint that fruit or how perfectly you can paint a photographic landscape. So I feel like an artist is so much more than just a painter. I feel like it's a common misconception, oh, I paint, so I'm an artist.
Yeah.
Today with AI, what is the value of being able to create pieces which are picture perfect? Like if I had to create a realistic piece, I'd rather take a photograph. Why am I spending 100 hours trying to create something which is as good as a photograph?
Hello everyone. Today I have Kunj Mehta with me from Paint Heads. She runs an experiential art studio in Bombay. And the reason I wanted to invite her on my podcast is because her way of teaching art is so unique. I haven't seen it before. So I'm really excited to be speaking to her today. Thank you, Kunj. Thank you for agreeing to come to my podcast.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
Okay, so please tell me, why do you do what you do?
So I feel like we live in a world where there is a lot of stress. We need people to slow down, experiment with themselves, discover themselves. And I feel like art is a great medium to, facilitate something like that. We're essentially a studio that teaches art to children, adults, anyone and everyone who wants to sort of dabble into the field. And we want to sort of revolutionize the way it's taught, the way it's perceived, and also sort of want to bring in art for everyone. So it's not like, oh, I do art only because I'm good at it, or, I do it because I want to make a career in it. But we want to make everyone conscious to what art is all about and let everyone tap the benefits.
Yeah.
A little story on why this started. Growing up, I didn't like the way art was taught. It was very pseudo, very typical. Oh, like the sky has to be blue and the elephant has to be gray. And I kept thinking that if I had to do it, I would do it so differently. So here I am so many years later trying to change that narrative.
Amazing, amazing. And do you have any age in mind where kids should start learning art or practicing art?
So practicing, yes. I think the earlier the better. I feel like structure can come in a little later, maybe post the age of 5. But it's great for them to be exposed to any kind of art while they're really young. So it could be just with, playing with paint, dabbling, their hand into color, playing with sort of different kind of aesthetic tools or something that gives them that whole feeling of being with color, playing with different surfaces, textures, things that sort of build their cognitive skills, the way they perceive the world, the way they think, the way they explore. So anything of that sort is great. However, I think the structure is better once they're slightly older. Is what I believe.
So in your experience, do you think it helps with their development?
Oh, 100%. 100%. So you're building your overall exposure, you're sort of forming a view on how you see the world. It's their way of interacting with things around them, with people, sort of self-expression. So I think it's a very, very important and very underrated sort of side of like.
Yeah, but have you any particular case where you have seen, the art or the work that you do has helped a child overcome his or her anxiety, stress, or, has helped the child to express emotions better?
Sure. I think 100%. There are some cases where you see it very clearly. There are some cases where you don't. But there is definitely like a benefit. We sort of provide that sort of free atmosphere, that space for them to feel like, okay, I'm not going to be judged here. This is not wrong. This is not right. So it is that place for them to be who they really are. It can be like a really silly, funny idea and we'll all laugh about it. So that's sort of encouraging them to feel like, whatever I see or whatever I feel is heard or is not wrong, or, no one's going to laugh.
Yeah.
So that definitely. And I feel like a lot of times there could be tricky situations where they may not be able to communicate verbally, but that does come out in what they do, which I think is a great space for them to let things out. Meaning, forget children, even as an adult, say if I'm going through like a difficult emotion which I don't know how to articulate or process, sometimes it's just about, sort of picking up a paintbrush, painting, articulating your thoughts, processing why that happened or how you behaved in a particular way. And then, sort of normalizing that situation in your head before it, becomes this big, identified or, like an emotion that just keeps building somewhere.
Yeah, I absolutely, agree with you. And I see art can also help adults, to really regulate their emotions as things, the trauma from the past or current or stresses. But it's still not a very common way of therapy.
Right.
So what's your, take on art as a therapy?
So the most basic way to look at it is just using a lot of color releases so much dopamine. So it's this instant feeling of feeling joy or feeling happiness. So I used to do art therapies for prisoners, before COVID. And just that sheer joy of seeing those so many bottles of paint and so much color, there would be this feeling of excitement saying, oh, this looks like ice cream. Can we eat it? So it's just that instant release of like a happy hormone. And I think over time, like I said, you process your emotions better. It gives you that downtime to sort of slow down, have a digital detox. You're not on your phone. Otherwise, I think any other part of the day, we're glued to some sort of device. There are 200 questions going on in your head, 100 other things, to do on your list. So I feel this really gives you that time to slow down, slow your thoughts, understand what you're going through, have that sort of me time, which again I feel is missing because we have such fast-paced lives.
I feel.
So it is like a meditation. Like for someone like me, I can't meditate. You tell me, close your eyes and sit down for half an hour. That's not something I can do.
Yeah.
But I think art is able to give you the same benefit.
Yeah.
And in the process, even discovering who you are, why you think in a particular way, what are the colors you're using, and there's a science behind everything. So it just gets you more conscious about little things around.
Okay. And for parents who want to encourage their children to be creative, explore the creative side, what are the few steps that they can take early on in the child's life?
So I think exposure of any kind. So it could be taking them to a museum, an art gallery, or just observing stuff at a restaurant, being able to talk to them about a whole lot of things. And that's how we build our visual bank. So it could be, taking them to the vegetable market or, something. I feel like today these kids live in these extra sanitized worlds where they're so excessively glued to gadgets. So I think just sort of going out in the open, seeing stuff, exploring stuff is all adding to our bank. It could be interesting to talk to them about artists, some of their stories, why they started painting the way they started painting. A lot of them went through certain hardships because of which they developed a style or, accidentally got into it. So I think it's very interesting to learn from people, from their stories, and eventually it builds in your own. There's a world inside of all of us. And I think exposure is what really adds to it. And then that does come out in what we do. And I don't just mean art, but it could be writing, it could be reading, it could be any kind of interesting life-altering experience. It could be a day at the amusement park or like something that they don't do often, which gets them to think differently. It could be a landscape of a particular place. It could be an architectural style. It could be a movie, but basically exposing them to as much as they can.
Yeah. What about some kids who are like, not very happy about touching sand? If you've heard like they don't want to get have their eyes dirty, is there some senses involved in it? Can that be, can that be overcome using art?
So it's about breaking that myth. Initially, they can be a little, sticky about it. But I feel like the more they experience it and they start liking it, I feel like it's just about doing it for the first time. And then when you notice, okay, this is enjoyable, this is different, this is unique, there are other people doing it, there is something in it, I feel it's breaking that notion. It's okay to get dirty. It's okay to, get into sticky things like this, but it's different. It's an experience.
Yeah.
So I think normalizing the whole situation, it's we don't need to force them initially. But over time, I feel it's very, very enticing.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many, we've had others come to so many of our workshops saying, oh, this is not for me. I haven't held a brush. I don't know how to do it. My clothes will get dirty.
Yeah.
You see 5 other people doing it. You see them having a good time. And then it's like, oh, what is this about? I think I want to dabble with this.
Yeah.
So it's like that whole thing of curiosity, saying if there are people doing it, there's something in it.
Yeah.
I won't realize it in the first go, but there is something to it.
I agree. And there are so many different art forms also.
Right.
Could you throw some light on, which are these different art forms and what are the few best ones to begin with?
I wouldn't segregate into, oh, this is best or this is not, but there are folk art forms. So folk art forms from different countries have a different cultural impact. The kind of colors used, the form used are different. There's a lot of art that's happened over the years with different periods. So there was Impressionism, there was Renaissance art, there was modern art. So art evolves with time and with context, and it's great to expose people to all of it. Not all of it is sort of relevant just now, but it's amazing to see the journey and the whole evolution of it. Plus, when we talk of different art forms, we're talking about different mediums. So a lot of the traditional folk art forms are done using pigments or crushed vegetable dyes and natural ways of using it. Then we've got a whole lot of other mediums, from charcoal to acrylic paints to oil paints, mixed media, watercolor, color pencil, meaning you name it and we're spoiled for choice. There could be a lot of other experimental mediums that you may not always use in art, but say something like mud, wire, plaster, things that you can keep experimenting with and create a style of your own. And now with the whole digital phase, we also have digital art as a whole new tool or a whole becoming medium.
Yeah, for sure. That's also very exciting. So the different mediums, as you said, and you said there's no one particular to begin with. And could you throw some light on, safe art supplies? As a mother myself, when I started introducing my daughter to art, I was like, oh my God, is this safe? What if she touches it and the paint goes through her skin into her body?
Right.
Things like that. So is there a myth behind this?
So personally, if you ask me, the messier you get, the more you're learning. As long as the child is not consuming it, I think anything and everything is safe. And I feel like that's something people need to develop over time. It's okay, it'll get washed off. But yes, you get non-toxic paints for kids who are below 3 years. So, it's not like they're consuming it, or, it's washable, considering it can come onto a lot of other surfaces. Most oil-based paints can be a little harmful if you inhale them for a very long time in a closed area. But it's not a very common thing for kids to be introduced to those mediums anyway.
Okay.
But things like crayons, watercolors, tempera colors, even stuff like Play-Doh and all of that is all super safe. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you don't know. Trust me.
I've eaten things as a kid. I've eaten crayons to see what they taste like. I've eaten every sort of possible paint, knowingly, unknowingly, all of it. So you call me crazy, you call me quirky, I'm alive.
Oh, wow. So I've eaten mud and sand and all that. So I think my daughter can eat that, but I've never eaten paint stuff. So, that's where the question comes from. Okay. And so what are some must-have tools, when a child is 2, 2.5, 3, whenever they start holding things and writing? What are some shopping supplies that a mother can go and get for the child?
It could be a bunch of paints, a lot of quirky tools that you don't necessarily see that, not something like a paintbrush, but it could be a roller, it could be a rolling pin, it could be a few things from the kitchen, it could be spoons. So it's not like one needs to invest in something very large. It could start off with something at home. You could use sponge, you could use pieces of scrap fabric, you could use toys, maybe have these foam sheets that you can cut out into different shapes, maybe make stamps. So I feel like there's this whole myth about, I need to have a whole lot of supplies, but I feel like the best art comes out of working with limitations. So you have your limited pieces. What can I really do to make the best of what I have? There is also a sense of curiosity that sparks with using something really interesting. So we've done sessions where we've had adults working with, so we give them paints, but no brushes. So we give them a broom, a dustpan, a sieve, common everyday items which you'll find at home, and then find a fun way to use them. It could be balloons, it could be straws, it could be a whole lot of stuff, and then there's no right or wrong way to use them.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. The other day, a friend of mine, she calls me because she knew that I've started painting and stuff. And even when I started, I was like, okay, so what do I get myself? Canvas? But which canvas? I learned on with the help of shopkeepers, कौन सा canvas चाहिए आपको, stretched चाहिए कि the other one you want. And that's how I learned. So this friend of mine calls me and say that, I really feel like painting, but I don't know, how many colors should I buy? Or what brush set should I get? Do I need a palette? So is there an initial starter kit for somebody, an older person to begin?
So I think there are a bunch of surfaces that we could use. So there's canvas, there's paper. You get a whole lot of paper. So from watercolor paper to cold press, hot press, you can start with a sketchbook. You also get tinted paper, which is colored paper, so not necessarily white. So first you pick your surface. Then you decide your medium, in which case it could be acrylic paints, oil paints, color pencils, markers, whatever you can get your hands on. A palette is great to use with any kind of painting supply because that's where you mix your colors. And it's okay even if you have just a set of 12 or 20 colors to begin with. You can pretty much mix and match and make every possible color under the sun. So you can start with a small paint kit, but mix colors with each other. There's primary colors, secondary colors, tertiary colors, and you can mix and make various shades by mixing them with each other, which also, there is a color theory to it, but it's also interesting to dabble with them and see what comes out of it. You get various types of brushes. So there's round brushes, flat brushes in various sizes for your size of sort of canvas or your base size. And you get brushes made of different bristles. So there's synthetic hairbrush, there's a hog hairbrush, there's a sable hairbrush, so squirrel hair, horse hair. So, specific brushes meant for specific kind of stuff. You get painting knives, you get spatulas, you get some texturing medium.
Exactly. I'm like, oh my God, the menu is endless.
It is.
Like, where do I start with?
Like going to an art store is like going to a supermarket.
Exactly.
So you will have aisles of tons of things, and depending on what you want to make and what cuisine you're trying to make, you'll mash up a bit.
Yeah, so first I select my surface and the size.
Right.
And then I pick the medium.
Right.
So whether watercolors or whatever. And then I go for the brush or the pencil if I want.
Right.
And do you think this is enough, or do I need something to seal the art?
Most canvases are sealed with something called a varnish or a fixative. So charcoal stuff or powdery stuff is you fix it with fixative. Whereas most other things are fixed using varnish. Not paper stuff, more like stuff that you do on a canvas or fabric or something that you do on wood, metal, even like a quirky surface. Varnish just helps it stay longer. So it makes it a little more durable. And it adds this little shine to it, which is more, it makes it look a little finished. Though in a lot of cases, I prefer not to use it because I feel like the raw effect is nicer. Plus, an interesting fact is that you can reuse a canvas multiple times if you don't varnish it. So say I made a painting, I don't like it, or I've outgrown it in 2 years, I can repaint over it. So there's a medium called gesso, which is like this white paste that you put over it, and then your canvas is as good as new.
Oh, wow.
So it's also interesting for budding artists to not keep investing in newer stuff, but to make use and reuse and upcycle what you already have.
That's a very good point to know, because I'm at a stage where I need to put paintings on the ceiling. Okay, and for parents who the kids come home with a lot of artwork, it's disheartening to throw them.
Right.
Like, is there a better way to store them?
I would recommend making something like a coffee table book or something where most of them are scanned, and then just the best ones that, sort of artworks that have an interesting story to tell or something that was a breaking point. Or it doesn't have to be the best pieces, but it has to be pieces that capture the essence of the journey. So we can retain maybe, 20 best over, the last 5 years or 6 years and have them into a little book. It's great to go back to it, but it's also compact because it's not like you have like this whole stack of papers. So I feel like probably putting them into book or, digitizing them. Or sometimes, because I have so many artwork from all over the years, I also recycle them. So if I've done something 10 years ago, I'll cut it up, switch it around, add it to a new one. So I also don't think it's great to be in love with your work and not move on. We all evolve. So it's okay to sort of use the art also in some way and upcycle that as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea. But here I'm thinking, like, I feel bad when I discard my daughter's artwork.
But she's always going to do stuff.
Yeah, that's why. And I always with, but still she doesn't come to me like, Mom, where is that drawing that I made? I'm like, oh my God. Okay. For aspiring artists, who create great artwork, like actually great, but don't have a, sorry to say that, judge like which is great or not.
No.
Of course, they feel, oh my God, you're doing a great job, or the artist is in love with her or his work. What are some ways that they can start getting their work noticed?
I think at this point, social media is a great place to be. It is your sort of low-cost platform to put your work out, to connect with people who are maybe not even in your city, etc. There are also these residency programs that happen in a lot of institutes. There's lots that happens in Baroda, in Hampi, abroad as well, where you can sort of sign up for like a 3-month program. You meet with a lot of other artists. You create a lot of work that can get showcased on larger platforms. Another thing would be there are a lot of open calls for artists. So it'll be like a contest. Or say like a big company wants to do, say, something for a CSR initiative, or they're doing something for Save the Tiger. They'll put out like a concept note out, and it's for a lot of artists to submit their work, and a lot of the nicer work gets recognized, it gets put up. There's also like a large prize money. So that's a great way to sort of get into the industry.
Yeah.
With say low capital or low cost, or not having networks.
Yeah.
So that's a great place to sort of start off with. And I feel once you're part of the artist groups, there's something or the other that'll always turn out. So there'll be opportunity where you can collaborate, you work in with a group with like-minded people from diverse backgrounds, and then create something.
So what are the platforms where artists can get to know about these contests and stuff?
That's for them to keep their mind, eyes, ears all open. But Mumbai has something called Mumbai Gallery Weekend, where this is like a network of the top galleries in Bombay. A lot of them which are well known, a lot of them which are in these hole-in-the-wall buildings in Fort, which say not the general public knows about. Yeah. So I think it's great to get onto the mailing lists of those sort of galleries. Maybe develop an artist friend circle. So maybe reach out to people on social media, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, who's stuff that you admire, or you think they're doing interesting stuff like this. A lot of them who go to art school will have a substantial network already, because you have your peers working and doing things like that. Yeah. And also the idea is to go and talk to people at shows. So there's Art Mumbai, and there's so much that's happening in terms of exhibition now. Yeah. Bombay, Delhi, all these metro cities, and now everyone is so much more open to art. Yeah. So I feel it's really about going there, speaking to the artists, speaking to the managers. It's all networking. Yeah. So you try and sort of show up and say that, hey, this is what I do and I'd love to meet. And maybe 80 out of 100 times, nothing's going to work out. But the few times that it does, I think it can take you places.
Yeah. Most of the people that I know, my age, who have kids, and it's now that they're like, I really wish to paint.
Right.
How can I know? And they start painting and they're like, okay, I want to be seen.
Right.
Or, so for them, it's very important, because going to a gallery, approaching them, it can be very intimidating.
Right.
Let alone signing up for a contest, because they don't have the confidence. They've never received a formal education. Right. But, as you know, and as I truly believe, that art really comes from within and you don't need to be taught. So, what are few ways that they can really, get on the ladder of confidence?
My design bias that's talking. I also encourage a lot of people to get into merchandising. Okay. So it may be hard to sell paintings per se if you're just beginning. True. Because people who want to buy art either want to buy the well-known sort of labels, or they want to get something very personalized, commissioned, etc. But if you're doing it as a hobby, and you don't want to invest that kind of time, energy, money doing very large pieces, it could be smaller pieces of art that could then get printed on, like, say, a piece of furniture. Say you collaborate with a brand who's doing upholstery, who's doing cushion covers, etc.
Interesting.
So that way, even with your limited resources, there's a whole lot that you can actually produce or print. Say you get into doing diary covers, you get into, say, the fashion industry and do scarves, textile printing.
Absolutely.
So I feel like there's a lot of scope for that. Yeah. And now the things are also moving to more sustainable ways and sustainable fashion. There's so many of these homegrown brands that have art on them and stuff that's all hand done, and it's all not machine printed. So I feel like those avenues are nicer for people who want to get into the space, because you can have 5 pieces but make 35 products with it.
I agree.
So I feel like that's a great start. Even monetarily, I feel like it's more viable, it's more commercial, because it's hard to sell a painting that costs 1 lakh, but it's comparatively way easier to sell 20 dresses that cost 5,000.
Yeah, and that gives you so much more confidence about your work, and you feel good about your art.
Correct.
So that's, and what about kids? I'm sure you, teach kids,
right,
who are different ages.
Right.
How do these kids take their art commercial?
So one aspect is if they do take it up commercially, that's great, but that's not the idea here. I feel like to expose a 6, 7-year-old to art may not be because he or she wants to become an artist in the future, but it's just changing the perspective of how you look at things. Or, today, if you've developed that sense of, that aesthetic sense or that sense of art, you will do a better dinner table setup, or you will match your clothes better, or you will be able to sort of design or visualize the space better. So I don't think everything boils down to, I need to be able to paint so well and I need to do this realistic face. But I feel like it's about getting them more conscious to things around, understanding themselves, the world, their emotions, creating a dialogue, being a change maker. So today, if say there is like an environmental crisis, how can you use your creative thinking or your problem solving ability to deal with the situation differently? Yeah. So I feel like the skill is just one small part of it. I would say it's like a bonus. Yeah. But the main thing is what the art journey sort of inculcates.
Yeah, true. But what are some misconceptions about becoming an artist? We discussed one just before we started recording.
Right.
Where my father told my elder sister when she said that I want to, write art. And he showed her a man painting a billboard and said, oh, is this what you want to do for your future? Could you tell me your story as well?
I feel like the way the world is going, there is a dearth and there's such a huge demand for artists and creative professionals, even if not art per se. When I started off, I was academically a really bright student. So I got this thing of, oh, you're so smart. Do you really want to do art?
Yeah.
So there was this whole perception of, people who don't like studying or we're not going to make it big can do this. Yeah. But I think the biggest myth there is art needs more effort than anything else. Yeah. There's so many other courses where you're slogging just during the exam time. This is that one sort of field where you're slogging every day, meaning there's constant practice, you need consistency, you need discipline, there's failure. It teaches you so much in the process. So number one, it's not easy. That's myth number one. Number two, there's tremendous scope. So there's tremendous money. You'll always be busy. It's not like you're going to be that, artist who is going door to door saying, hey, give me some work or I have nothing to do. There are a lot of commercial avenues now to that pay you. It's not like fine art is the only field. There is design, there is photography, there is illustration. So all of that are forms of art, but which are commercially more viable. Yeah. Meaning you could work at an editorial firm, you could work with a magazine, you could get into branding, advertising, you could get into sort of hand painting stuff for brands, you could do a mural at a restaurant. So it doesn't just boil down to only, I sit in my little under my rock, get inspired some days, feel wasted some days. It's not like that anymore. Yeah. You name the field and you need an artist or a creative professional there. I also feel like the whole narrative is changing. People want to pick a career that they are happy to be doing rather than get stuck into like a job where you're sogging your ass out doing something you don't enjoy. Yeah. So I feel like a creative field gives you that space to explore the best of both worlds. Yeah. Where it's something the world needs, it's something you're good at, it's something that's paying you. So I guess it's a mix of everything.
I agree with you.
And I also, this is a personal thing. I feel like people perceive art and skill as the same thing. But I believe as an artist, it doesn't matter how well you can paint that fruit or how perfectly you can paint a photographic landscape. Yeah. But, what is that style? Can you come up with a style of your own? How will you evaluate a particular situation? How will you work with limitations? How will you change context in comparison, with the times changing? So I feel like an artist is so much more than just a painter. True. I feel like it's a common misconception, I paint, so I'm an artist.
Yeah, I think art comes from within and it just, how well you can portray your own emotions.
Right.
Because I'll tell you, a few years back when I wanted to, start painting on canvas, I just wanted to. And right. I found a teacher who could come home and teach me, but I just did a few classes with him and it didn't sit well with me because I didn't want to follow what he was teaching, and then I started with my own way, how I wanted to do it. But my husband doesn't like that things. So I think that, is it I feel like art can't be good or bad. Or can it be?
Well, it can be good and bad. It can't be right and wrong. I think everything is good or bad in the sense that everyone has a view an opinion on everything, and everything is subjective. You may love a restaurant, I may not. You may love a movie, I may hate it. So I feel like just with art, I feel it's more about the process, not the end result. It's about what it made you feel, and it's about that journey and not how well it hangs on a wall. So you may love red, I may hate it. I may love blue, you may like yellow. So I feel like there's subjectivity everywhere. But it's absolutely about the process.
That's true. Also, like, I enjoy the process. I enjoy the final artwork, regardless of whether somebody likes it or not, honestly. But that's because of the kind of strong person I am.
Right.
I don't think, like, if a kid is given that kind of feedback on his or her art work, I think it can really dim their confidence.
Yes.
So what is the right approach for parents, my husband, to, the right words to use for kids when they show their work of art?
Right. So number one, I think the fact that they're creating is great. Good, bad, doesn't matter. But the idea is, when I had a free afternoon, my child painted versus said, let me watch some crappy piece of cartoon. So I feel like we should acknowledge the fact that they're creating. Good, bad is again very subjective. We should acknowledge the fact that they tried something new. A lot of the kids we notice are very much in their comfort zone and they want to do stuff that gets validation. Or, I'm so good at this, so let me stick to this style because, my mom loves it, my friends love it, my teacher in school loves it. So if we want to sort of break that pattern, we need to be open to them trying and them failing. So I keep telling the kids that not every artwork will be amazing. You'll have some which are your absolute favorites. You'll have some that you don't like too much. You'll have some that you're neutral towards. You may have one artwork that you don't like today, but you love 2 years down the line. Because you're a more mature person. You evolved. You're looking at things differently. So I think as parents and teachers, we need to just be more open. Open to whatever they create. Because the idea is at least there's a starting point. Because if we're very harsh or we're very negative or very judgmental about stuff, there is going to be this subconscious fear. Saying, let me not try this, let me stick to the safer stuff. So I feel like we want to break that pattern where, every great idea today started off from, like a very silly thought or, 5 people saying that, this is not going to work. Like you take Disney, for example, or Apple for that example. So I feel like so many large brands today or so many best ideas are what they are because of, a crazy person thinking like my idea has potential. Screw what the world has to think about it and I'm going to go on. So I feel rather than stifling that creativity, let's be open to everything that comes.
Just the fact that you took an action is great, regardless of giving any kind of input on whether she drew the tree properly or the house properly or whichever concept but you tried, good, right? Did you enjoy it?
Right.
Don't you think this should be the kind of
absolutely
question? And I think even teachers today, I don't know how they what is their choice of words or sentences when kids go with their artwork. You would know it better. But I always feel that it's very important for kids to be given that platform to just try.
Exactly. And I feel like the focus needs to move from realism. Today, you will attribute saying that, this child is a great artist because he or she can paint or draw really well and make it photorealistic and have it perfectly within the lines. And you may put down someone who's a little messy all over the place, is a little more rebellious in their work. But I feel like today with AI, what is the value of being able to create pieces which are picture perfect? Like if I had to create a realistic piece, I'd rather take a photograph. Why am I spending 100 hours trying to create something which is as good as a photograph? So I feel like we also need to be open to more styles, open to individuality, open to the fact that this child is doing something unconventional from the rest. So rather than shunning down, saying that, this piece is just standing out a bit too much and it's not going with the rest, I think we need to encourage that. Because that's where a whole world is going to come out of that versus eventually when you grow older and you have 20 people in a class who are trying to copy that exact same piece, you will have 20 artworks that look identical versus having that one that actually stands out.
True. So coming back to the question we left halfway, AI art is everywhere, and what do you think AI art is real art?
So real or not, again, is very debatable. I do think AI is a great tool to make your life a little simpler or, helps you with time or helps you where, you have limited bandwidth, but it cannot replace original art. Or I don't think, beyond the point, AI is very limited. And at the end of the day, it's still prompted by a human or an artist.
Yeah.
So it doesn't work without the human touch. It's not going to work. And say even a few years down the line, even once AI gets much bigger and better, there is still a limitation. Like I know when I've used a few prompts and 3-4 of my colleagues have used the same thing, at the end of it, what you end up getting is very similar. Beyond a point, there will be, that infinite possibilities is not going to happen because it's working in a limited circuit where it's picking up information and sort of processing it. But like how the human mind can come up with absolutely anything and everything, and it can be super bizarre. I don't think AI is going to get there anytime soon. Like, yes, it does make your life simpler and quicker and resourceful when you see it temporarily. But in the larger picture, I don't think this can replace humans.
Do you think it's good to introduce kids, the age of 5 to 10, to AI and AI-generated art?
Maybe not 5 to 10, because then that becomes the easier way out. Saying, if my computer can do it for me, why should I do it? And I see that. I see that as a conversation happen in class, saying, if we give them a little research project to do, I'll just get ChatGPT to do it. Why shouldn't I? Or, they'll tell you, you're so old-fashioned, you're not letting me use it. But I feel at the right time, everything is good. So maybe not at 5 to 10, because when you give them the tool that's going to do their work, they're going to get dependent on it. And they're not going to push themselves enough. So not that quick. But later on, yes, once you've developed a decent enough interest, a level of skill, you can use AI to help you to take your work 5 notches higher, but not completely depend on it.
Right. Do you think AI is hampering traditional artists?
To some extent, yes. But it all depends on how one perceives it. And I think it all depends on the viewers. There are still traditionalists who would value the hands-on methods a lot more than... imagine like a ceramic vase which is made completely from scratch versus like a 3D generated fancy vase. So I guess it depends on what your perception is and where you lie. But I feel art lies in the fact that it's unique, it's one of a kind, and there is nothing else like that. Like today, if you made something handmade and you try and replicate exactly the same thing, you're not going to be able to. There are always going to be those nuances and those little differences that make it unique from something, say, that is machine made. So I feel like for people who have the eye and who value that uniqueness and the fact that it's hand done, will never shift. But yes, you will find people who will say that if I'm getting something cheaper, I'm getting something exactly the way I want to, etc. Or, it sort of fits a lot of parameters. Why do something hand done and spend 100 hours when I can get it done in an hour? So you'll always have 2 kinds of people.
Yeah.
And I think that's always there for anything.
Yeah. That's true. But I think AI-generated art misses the human touch, that an
100%.
actual piece of art.
For sure.
But I hope it's only temporary, that it's affecting the traditional artists who spend hours and their entire life creating an artwork.
Personally, my experience with AI is every time, I haven't done that much, but those few times when I've tried to generate an AI-driven image, I always feel like, no, this is not what I wanted. I'm imagining something else. What I'm getting is very different.
And it's not even so you're not invested much in
Exactly. But I feel like there is a huge gap. You give the same task to a human versus like a robot. I'm not saying what is good, what is better, what is worse off. But it's very, very different. So I feel like it's not replaceable.
True. Wow. Thank you so much. This was so insightful. Do you have anything, to tell directly, to people watching this and, probably thinking of taking up art as therapy or probably, becoming a professional artist?
So all I'd like to say is don't have those inhibitions saying I haven't done it. My teacher in school 20 years ago said I was good for nothing, so I'm not going to lift up a pencil. Just go for it. It doesn't matter if like 20 people don't appreciate your work in the beginning, but you will give so much out of the process. It will give you so much joy. Over time, you will learn, you will know what is working, what is not working. You will develop your strengths, your weaknesses, but art is a great tool to have. It's great for self-discoveries, great for you to spend your time by yourself, doing something that you love. You'll develop it as a hobby and it'll take you places. We depend too much on humans and situations and things in our life to work out. This is that tool that makes you self-sufficient. You don't have anyone next to you, go make a painting. You're spending that kind of time with yourself. It's like a date with yourself. So do it for yourself, not for the world.
Oh, thank you so much. That was wonderful.
So glad.
Thank you.